So the greatest fight in a series is subjective, of course. It ultimately comes down to what you feel is the greatest. But in my opinion, I think the greatest fight in Jujutsu Kaisen is Gojo versus Toji. And in this video, I want to go over it and talk about it. Especially because once we see this animated in season 2, I think there's going to be a massive surge in interest and popularity because of it. So this fight actually happens in the past, about 12 years before the current time in the story. And in it, we see a younger Gojo who's still in Jujutsu High taking on Megumi's father, Toji Fushiguro, aka Toji Zhoniin. And to make a long story short, they're brought together here because of this girl, Riko Amane. She's deemed to be the next vessel for Master Tengen. Toji is contracted to kill her, as where Gojo is instructed to protect her. So naturally, we have two opposing forces here coming together to accomplish opposite tasks. However, Toji is very much aware of Gojo, being that, Toji comes from the Zhoniin clan first of all, but also at this point in the story, Toji is like this notorious assassin, known as the Sorcerer Killer. Hey, also guys, if you like my Jujutsu Kaisen content, please subscribe if you haven't already. It's fine if you don't want to, but if you just needed a reminder, here you go. Thanks. So Toji knows that Gojo is the first person in like 100 years to be born with the Six Eyes ability and the Limitless Curse technique. And because of this, he actually went to go check out Gojo when he was a child. And he says that that was the first and last time that anyone was aware of his presence behind them. So coming into this, Toji is very aware that Gojo is essentially the strongest sorcerer in the world. And that in order to defeat him, he's going to have to be prepared. And to make another long story short, he basically plans to exhaust Gojo by the time that he's ready to strike him. And he does this by putting Gojo on high alert for like 3 days straight, trying to protect this girl Riko. And throughout these 3 days, Gojo is like perpetually using the Six Eyes ability, but he's also not sleeping. And naturally, because of this, he's weakened and exhausted. So by the 3rd day, when Gojo finally brings Riko to Jujutsu High so that she can, finally merge with Tengen, that's when Toji finally shows up to make his move, and he winds up stabbing Gojo through the chest. Now, Toji is able to do this for multiple reasons. First of all, like I said, Gojo is kind of exhausted at this point, and he's not at the top of his game. But also, Gojo wasn't able to fully sense Toji because he has heavenly restriction. This means that Toji has 0 cursed energy, but in exchange, he basically becomes like a superhuman. Now, this strike through Gojo doesn't kill him, of course, because Gojo says that it didn't hit any vital organs, and at the last second he was able to reinforce his cursed energy to make sure the sword didn't do any further damage, and that it's basically the equivalent of a pin going through a knitted sweater. Now at this time, Geto is also with Gojo, and he winds up assisting him, but Gojo's like, nah, you take care of Riko, I'll fight Toji. And this is where the real fight begins. So at this point, Toji reveals like what his game is, and it's that he carries around like this worm curse spirit with him, which is essentially like a pocket dimension that carries his cursed tools and whatever else he needs in a fight. And as the fight begins, Gojo starts using his Azure Glow, which is like when Limitless is amplified by cursed energy, it creates like this vacuum. But because Toji is like a superhuman, he's able to avoid this, and we really see his physicality in this sequence because he starts darting all over the place in order to attack Gojo. He also pulls out another cursed tool, and Gojo's aware that like, oh, this thing's probably special because he's trying to get close to hit him with it. But Toji winds up going into a house nearby, and Gojo's like, oh, well, he knows what my curse technique is at this point. He came prepared. So in order to take away any advantages that Toji has here, Gojo uses his max curse energy output Azure Glow and kind of just destroys everything in the nearby vicinity so that there's nothing in the way to block his view so that, Toji can't hit him with a surprise attack. But suddenly all of these little fly head curses start coming out of the woods, and they're now surrounding Gojo. And Toji is able to do this because he stored them all inside of his like pocket dimension cursed worm thing. And Gojo realizes that he can't locate him, of course, because lack of cursed energy, and his view is blocked again. But then at this point, Gojo has like a momentary lapse of judgment because he thinks that like, oh, Toji may have done this purposely, not because he's trying to attack Gojo, but because he's trying to go back after Riko, his original target of assassination. But as he thinks this, Toji winds up behind him and stabs him in the neck. But he doesn't doesn't just stab him with any regular cursed tool, he stabs him with the inverted spear of heaven, which has the ability to shut down curse techniques. This is like one of, if not the best cursed tool in the series, essentially, especially against Gojo, because we know that with his limitless technique, you basically can't get close to him, let alone touch him. But using this cursed tool that shuts down curse techniques, he's basically turned Gojo into like a regular sorcerer at this point. But it doesn't stop there, because then he starts stabbing him in the legs, and then he pulls out like another smaller knife and stabs him in the head with it. And Gojo is pretty much defeated at this point. And this is like a massive shock to a first-time reader, because it's like, what? Gojo actually lost here? I mean, naturally, we don't think that he's going to die because he's alive in the current time in the story, but we're just like, whoa, I didn't even think Gojo losing was an option here. But yeah, Toji straight up defeats Gojo. But, you know, as we talked about, he doesn't successfully kill him. And we're going to find out why that is, because while this was the first round of their fight, they of course have a second round. So after this, Toji actually successfully goes on to kill Riko, and he actually also defeats Geto as well. Pretty impressive resume that Toji has built up here. And after getting paid by the Time Vessel Association, Toji just assumes like, oh, mission accomplished. And as he's leaving, Gojo is outside waiting for him. And Gojo reveals that as soon as Toji stabbed him in the neck, he basically just stopped worrying about everything else and just focused on reverse curse technique. And this is actually something that Gojo wasn't able to do before this point, because remember, this is like teenage Gojo. He's not as seasoned, as experienced as the Gojo that we've come to know. But on the brink of death, Gojo kind of has like this sudden breakthrough where he fully realizes cursed energy and how it works. And because of this, he was able to multiply negative cursed energy with itself to make positive cursed energy, which is the foundation for reverse curse technique, which basically winds up healing him. So now he's ready to take on Toji again, of course, but Toji's like totally accepting of this, and he's ready to go for round 2 as well. So Toji immediately starts going after Gojo, you know, swinging the inverted spear of heaven at him, but Gojo's just easily able to avoid it at this point. He winds up firing off like a red glow at him, which is like limitless with positive cursed energy infused in it. And Toji's able to survive this, and he winds up putting his inverted spear of heaven on a chain and tries to attack Gojo this way. And this is basically the end of the fight, because as Toji goes to make his final strike against Gojo, Gojo quickly counters him with the hollow technique purple, which is like the negative and the positive application of limitless, which is like his strongest move, at least that we know of at this point. And that being said, there's no way Toji can avoid this, and of course can't even survive it, because this blows a hole through Toji. And yeah, that's the end of the fight. Gojo winds up killing Toji with hollow technique purple. And like I said, this is probably the greatest fight that we've seen in the series, despite it being relatively short. Like, it consists of 2 rounds, and both rounds are pretty fast. And I guess it's because when you see like 2 super powerful individuals fighting at like basically the highest level, it comes down to a game of inches and who makes the first mistake. In the first round, we saw Gojo have like a momentary lapse of judgment, thinking that Toji was going after Riko, when in fact he was just setting up the perfect opportunity to strike him in the neck. And then in the second round, we saw Toji gambling on hitting Gojo with one big final strike from the inverted spear of heaven, kind of similar to the first time around, except this time Gojo is fully enlightened and just counters him with the hollow purple, which is just, you know, way too much power for Toji to deal with, despite how capable he is. But awesome fight here, and an awesome dichotomy between the 2 characters. You know, Gojo, the ultimate sorcerer, versus Toji, the ultimate human, who uses no jujutsu and just cursed tools and high fight IQ. Yeah, that's pretty much it for this one. Let me know what you guys think about this fight in the comments, and if you liked the video, please give it a like, and please subscribe if you haven't already. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.